So today I kind of want to open up and talk about something that at least to me feels kind of private and personal. And it's something very related to minimalism and decluttering, but I don't see people talking about it very frequently. Or when they do talk about it, it just doesn't necessarily resonate with my experience of it. And so I just wanted to open up and see if other people experience this too. I've seen some comments that start to allude to this, and I just want to be an open book and talk about it rather than kind of skirting around the issue. So I'm here today to talk about that issue. So hi, I'm Aylin, and this is my channel Slice of Light. If you're interested in more videos on simple living, minimalism, living more intentionally, and building an empowering mindset, then you can hit the subscribe button below. And if you end up liking this video, hit the thumbs up button. I'd really appreciate it if you end up being willing to do those things because they actually support me. So basically, I want to talk about decluttering regrets. I've seen a lot of YouTubers, and just anytime I see someone talk about decluttering and regret, they basically say that it doesn't happen for them. And I will say that for the YouTubers that say, I've never regretted anything I've decluttered, all power to them. I mean, that is awesome if they've honed their decluttering skill so precisely that they've never had a regret. And I think that is the experience for a lot of people, so I'm not trying to diminish that awesomeness. But I do think for a subset of us people who are pursuing minimalism, who are doing regular declutters, we do experience regret. And to be honest, I think sometimes all the content out there of people saying that they never regret a declutter makes me kind of self-conscious about the fact that sometimes I do miss an item that I've decluttered. Like just the other day, I was making homemade hummus, and I realized I had decluttered this really nice bowl that was like perfect for presenting hummus. It's the right depth, it's the right size. When I realized, oh, I got rid of that, I had forgotten that I use it for when I make hummus, I kind of missed it. And there have been lots of other situations like that where maybe there's a t-shirt or a sweater that I could have used later on. And what's interesting to me about that is that with my old wardrobe, I do think that I would end up using almost everything at least like once in a blue moon, but it would just be very, very rarely. And so it is kind of a weird phenomenon to downsize and then to realize, oh, I actually did use that. It just wasn't very often. And then in those moments, I might experience regret. But I do think, like I've said before on this channel, I'm just somebody that naturally tends toward collecting and keeping things. I've just got a little bit of that sticky mindset of wanting to collect and keep things. And so when I let them go and I could have used them later, I'm kind of disappointed in myself, in the process. I just kind of miss that item. And don't get me wrong, it's not like the biggest deal in the world, but it's just kind of like in that moment, it's like, oh, too bad. And then sometimes I'll think about it more throughout the day. Even though it's not a big deal, for some reason it'll kind of bother me. And maybe it's that I feel a little guilty for having gotten rid of it and being wasteful. Maybe it's kind of sadness over the missed opportunity to use it and that it could have been really useful at that moment. It's nothing super intense, but it's enough to kind of bother me. It's kind of like an itch that you can't quite scratch. And I think in experiencing that several times over the moving towards minimalism and decluttering process, I've realized that I just need to accept that that might be a little part of the experience for me. That I might have those kind of sticky thoughts sometimes, or have that tendency towards wanting to keep things around. I may have times where I kind of miss things, but that's maybe showing that my mindset needs to shift just a little bit more. I also think something that I learned actually in giving therapy was that sometimes what's most important is actually your behavior and not necessarily your thoughts. Now, probably different therapists would make different arguments about this issue. But sometimes it's kind of like, even if you're a little stressed about something, you're a little worried about something, if you're still living behaviorally according to your values and what you care about, maybe it's not the end of the world, and that over time, it's very likely that your thinking and your emotional processes around that will change. And so part of me does wonder if there may come a point eventually where I just never really think about the things I declutter. And don't get me wrong, I definitely don't think about things that I declutter that often. It's a rare occurrence, but it still does bother me. But I have noticed there are a few things that I remind myself of that kind of big picture, it shows these little regrets maybe don't matter in the grand scheme of things or in the grand scheme of life. The first thing is, have I ever had to replace an item that I decluttered? And so far, the answer is no. So that tells me something, that these items that I'm regretting decluttering are not absolutely integral to the foundation of my life. Like that hummus bowl I mentioned, I found some other bowl that I could put it in. Was it presented quite as beautifully? No, but it worked just fine. Is it worth it to keep that nice bowl just for the one time every once in a while I make hummus? Probably not. So maybe that was the right decision that I got rid of it. The second thing I remind myself is, did this item actually give me a deep sense of satisfaction or meaning? Did this actually contribute to my values or what's important to me in life? And no, that's never happened, that any one item that I've decluttered has taken away any deep sense of meaning or purpose in my life. It hasn't affected my relationships, it hasn't affected my work, and it hasn't affected other hobbies or interests. So why do I need to be so down about this? I really don't. A third thing is just to remind myself, missing this item or wishing I had it in this moment is ultimately somewhat superficial. And I'm not trying to say that in a self-judgy way. Like, I think it's okay that I have these regretful thoughts, but I think I just need to remember, like, these items just are kind of superficial. They're not like part of who I actually am. And so I don't need to get so stressed out over them. Now, I do think a caveat to this is there may be times where there's like a truly sentimental item that you've decluttered and maybe you feel some regret. But I do think that ultimately, again, at the very end of the day, objects themselves are superficial. Perhaps what they represent is more important, but often the object itself doesn't need to be valued quite as much as maybe our brains automatically value it. And now I want to come to perhaps my final point about this whole issue, and I think it's perhaps the most important, and that's that minimalism does sometimes involve sacrifice. And I'm not saying major, massive, groundbreaking sacrifice, but it does involve sacrifice and adjustment. And I think that's something that minimalists don't frequently talk about. They talk about how much better minimalism has made their life. There are little tiny sacrifices that are made along the way in the process of decluttering and in the process of moving closer and closer towards minimalism. I mean, first of all, the actual act of decluttering and thinking about your values and reprioritizing your life, that's work, that's effort. In a sense, it's a sacrifice. And it's important to acknowledge that it does take some work. The other everyday impact is also that there are fewer options, which I do think kind of opens up your world a bit, in that sometimes having fewer options actually makes you appreciate the ones you have that much more. It's like that phenomenon I often hear people talk about in regards to their closet. When they had a ton of stuff, it's like, I feel like I don't have anything to wear and I don't like anything I have. Whereas when they simply declutter, they start to enjoy the items they have even more. There is a positive effect of this. But at times there's also a negative effect, just in that you don't have as many different things of the same category. So for example, winter boots. I live here in Minnesota. Often having several different types of winter boots for icier days or snowier days or wetter days can be beneficial. And so historically, I've had a lot of different boots. I mean, same even with the summer. Often I want many different kinds of sandals for different outfits or different contexts or different levels of walking. Having options often is a nice thing. But am I willing to make a sacrifice and just have one or two winter boots or sandals and whittle it down for the sake of the bigger picture values, for the sake of me actually moving towards minimalism, spending more of my time and my energy on things that I value and care about, rather than just spending all my time cleaning up after myself, putting things away, repairing old items, that sort of thing. Ultimately, I guess just those decluttering regrets, yes, they might happen. They have happened to me. I just want to be open about that. They've happened to me. But is it worth it at the end of the day? And I do think in the bigger sense of regret, maybe I don't regret it. There are moments of smaller regret, momentary kind of like missing things, but in a bigger, deeper sense of purpose and meaning, I am glad that I'm where I'm at right now. And sometimes those little details I can just let go of. I do think the payoff of minimalism is worth it because you end up saving money, you end up saving time and energy. You have more space to spend with friends and family, pursuing dreams, doing things that you enjoy. Being in the moment, living slowly, and experiencing the world around you. Life is about those bigger picture things. When you look back and remember your childhood, do you remember that one item, or do you remember an experience, a memory, a relationship? I think that's what's important to remember at those moments when we experience regret, when we miss an item that we've decluttered. Remember the big picture. I also think this is the type of thing that can really be applied across life. You know, whenever we have little stressors or things that are bothering us, remembering the bigger picture and our values can help reduce the sense of stress or anxiety and get us in touch with what really matters to us in life. So I guess this whole concept of this video was pretty straightforward and simple, but I guess I just wanted to put it out there that I've experienced many different decluttering regrets and little moments of missing items. But at the end of the day, there's a bigger picture goal of living my life in a more intentional way, and it's probably worth those regrets along the way. Ultimately, too, I've decluttered so much, and the vast majority of items I honestly kind of forget about. So that's kind of a comfort too. So feel free to share in the comments if you've had decluttering regrets and your experience of that. Maybe you're also one of those people that hasn't experienced decluttering regret, and maybe you're gonna kind of judge me a little bit for experiencing regret, but I'm just trying to be open and honest. And I would love to hear all of your reactions to declutters you've done and maybe challenges you've had sort of after the fact, after you've done the decluttering. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. If you ended up liking it, please subscribe below, hit the thumbs up button on the video. And that's really all I have for you. But I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.